Did you know this miracle in American history? The French and Indian War ended in 1763, with the French losing Canada and all their land east of the Mississippi River. King George III decided to tax the colonies to pay for their defense in case of future French incursions or native uprisings. British troops were funded by the sugar tax of 1764, the stamp tax of 1765, and the Townshend Acts of 1767, taxing glass, paint, and paper. As the colonies had no representatives in Parliament, the cry arose, "No taxation without representation." The king imposed writs of assistance in 1765, allowing British authorities to arrest anybody, anytime, anywhere, on any suspicion, and to detain them indefinitely. Citizens' houses and properties and farms could be taken without a warrant or due process. As there were no barracks in America, the British troops forcibly lodged or quartered in the citizens' homes, leaving families to live in barns, basements, or attics. On March 5th, 1770, a mob formed in Boston to protest. And in the confusion, British troops fired into the crowd, killing 5, one of which was the African-American patriot Crispus Attucks. This became known as the Boston Massacre. In 1773, the British passed the Tea Act, in which the king showed favoritism by allowing the East India Tea Company to sell 500,000 pounds of tea in the colonies with no taxes, giving them a monopoly by underselling American merchants. On December 16, 1773, Sam Adams led some citizens of Boston, called Sons of Liberty, to disguise themselves as Mohawk Indians and raid the British ships at Griffin's Wharf, throwing 342 chests of British East India Company tea into Boston's harbor. This became known as the Boston Tea Party. The king responded with the Boston Port Act, punishing the colonists by blockading Boston's harbor. The date was to be on June 1st of 1774. In the neighboring colony of Virginia, Thomas Jefferson drafted a day of fasting to be observed the same day. It was introduced into the Virginia House of Burgesses by Robert Carter Nicholas with the support of Patrick Henry, Richard Henry Lee, and George Mason. It passed unanimously. It said, "This House, being deeply impressed with apprehensions of the great dangers to be derived to British America from the hostile invasion of the city of Boston in our sister colony of Massachusetts, deem it highly necessary that the said first day of June be set apart by the members of this House as a day of fasting, humiliation, and prayer, devoutly to implore the divine interposition for averting the heavy calamity which threatens destruction to our civil rights. Ordered, therefore, that the members of this House do attend with the Speaker and the mace to the church of the city for the purposes aforesaid, and that the Reverend Mr. Price be appointed to read prayers, and the Reverend Mr. Gwatkin to preach a sermon." George Washington wrote in his diary, June 1st, 1774, "Went to church, fasted all day." Virginia's royal governor, Lord Dunmore, viewed the fasting resolution as a veiled protest against King George III, as it was the king's policy which was responsible for blockading Boston's harbor. Lord Dunmore dissolved the House of Burgesses. Rather than going home, the Virginia legislators gathered down the street at Raleigh Tavern, where, in the back room, they conspired to form the First Continental Congress, which met 3 months later in Philadelphia. Within 2 years, the Continental Congress voted for independence. America is unique in world history, and it's important for us to remember these miracles in American history.